From I Am Interchange, this is the Hatch podcast series.
It seems now more than ever that we have found ourselves on the cusp of monumental worldwide change. Whether we consider the environment, politics, infrastructure, health, economics, or inequities across a broad swath of social constructs, the consensus is clear and urgent. All is not as it should be. The United Nations, a consortium of 193 member states from around the globe, agrees. In 2015, the UN unanimously adopted the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. These goals call for urgent action in global partnership to secure peace and prosperity for people and the planet, now and into the future.
In alignment with the SDGs, Hatch, a curated network of artists, activists, and entrepreneurs working together to accelerate positive global change, has partnered with I Am Interchange to fuse adventure journalism with experiential design labs to develop innovative solutions to complex global challenges. I'm Tate Chamberlin, and in this episode, I host Karoline Zizka, Florian Fournier, and Fernando del Sol of FreeFlow, a global movement to empower the people with sustainable access to complementary education, internet, and currencies for less than $1 per month. Through an open source, peer-to-peer decentralized internet infrastructure, ThreeFold's Web 4, stateless and lightweight Zero OS. If you haven't listened to our last episode, The Internet of Internets, I'd recommend starting there. This chapter is essentially what the world could look like on top of a decentralized internet infrastructure. We're in Egypt. Join me, won't you? I'm Tate Chamberlin. This is the Hatch podcast series. Welcome, everyone. We've got Fernando, we've got Florian, and Karoline. How are you all doing?
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Well. Glad to have you here.
Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
How did you all earn your first dollar?
My first dollar, I think, was picking pecans for my father, and we had a choice. We'd pick pecans in the yard or go to church, and I hated church, so I picked a lot of pecans.
That's good.
As far as I remember, I think it was cooking some cookies at home.
You cooked cookies?
Yeah.
Your first dollar?
Yeah,
that's good.
It was back then. I was in France and we were using franc, but it was my first money in was cooking.
My mom has a hairdresser store, and I was helping there, cleaning up a bit or so, getting shilling at that time. That was the Austrian currency.
A shilling?
Yeah, a shilling.
For cleaning your mom's hairdresser store?
Yeah, just
Sweeping the hair?
Sweeping the hair and doing things, bringing a little orange juice.
That's good. To get our listeners just kind of in tune to where we're at, will you all just help me describe what we're doing right now and where we're at and why this setting's important?
Yeah. Well, we're here on the Nile. It's a pleasure actually to have you here, Tate. Thank you for traveling so far away for meeting us here. We're here going from Luxor to Aswan, Aswan to Luxor, going in different places, different temples. It's a very important place for us, I think for all of us. It's a place that there are very deep connections, and we like to gather like-minded people on this place because it's actually somewhere that a lot happen.
It's the mother of civilization, Egypt, in a lot of ways. So coming back to the Nile is like coming back to the birth canal in a way. And then all the temples that I was surprised are so well preserved. Blow your mind. I mean, the hieroglyphs and the sphinxes and statues, especially the hieroglyphs. When I looked at them the first time in Luxor at the temple, it was like they were sizzling through me to some part of me in the past that recognized them. And I was in the middle kind of trying to balance this bit of waves. I was almost a little bit dizzy from it. But then it computed and I sat with it and I felt like, wow. How did they do this in the first place, and how did they preserve it? I love the Nile in Egypt.
A very potent place for us. We have 34 cabins, 3 big boats, and we are being connected to the very ancient past, as Fernando just described, and then going all in the future with our projects and like-minded people, which is, wow, what a incredible washing machine over 2 weeks.
It is kind of, it gets everyone out of their kind of day-to-day and just tumbles you around in a bunch of ways that you might not have considered.
How is it for you so far?
It's awesome. At Hatch, we work with a lot of experiential designers, and so they put a lot of thought into setting and where we go. There's Hatch Adventures, and the Hatch Labs are in really cool places. And I think one of the reasons why we're here and like bridging this friendship is because there's a lot of equal value to that, to our organization's value to setting and experiential design, and a lot of it's important. You know, a lot of conferences are held in like hotel ballrooms.
Yeah.
Can you imagine this happening there?
No, no way.
It's beautiful. It's a real pleasure to be here. Do you remember your first sense of community?
I do. I was a boy growing up in the south side of San Antonio, Texas, and I remember when I was 11, I found out I was adopted in school. Another adopted brother told the whole school, so I had a complete meltdown. And for me, I looked at my family and I thought, wow, that's not my father, that's not my mother, that's not my brother, that's not my grandmother, and I felt really isolated. And so my first sense of community was I joined a gang of boys that were all kind of wayward. And we loved each other and we fought for each other and we protected each other and we fed each other. And it was the first real sense of security that I felt from outsiders, from the home, you know. So that always kind of set a high standard for me in loyalty and being really true to each other.
So you were adopted and remember not feeling the sense of family, and your first community you remember was the gang that you joined?
Yeah.
How about you, Karoline or Florian? What was your first sense of community that you remember?
I think in my case it was probably when I was a kid. I went to the Scouts at some point, and I didn't stay very, very long in that group. But
Like in America?
yeah, like Scouts, like
Boy
Scouts.
Scouts.
Boy Scouts,
Boy
yeah.
Scouts.
I went to the Boy Scouts. Actually, it was the Ranger Scouts.
The Ranger
I
Scouts.
have no clue why my dad chose that group, but they were a bit intense. But yeah, I felt it was actually interesting to be in the forest and feel connected with this, and like sleep all together and like do those fires. And very quickly, I was not very connected with some of the values or some of the people going there, so I kind of quit after maybe 2 years. But at that time, it was, I really felt part of a community.
I had a little bit more time to think about it. So one would be when I was younger with some girlfriends, kind of like just being in this 10 girlfriends kind of group. But later when I moved to Bali and I lived there, then I really had the first time a feeling of community where everybody in the kind of like town, village knew each other, and they went to the same kind of like yoga classes and did the same kind of experiences together on the weekend, and that felt really like homey. And that would be for me this feeling of community.
What I feel interesting in what we all said here is that there is a gender-related thing to the sense of community when we're young, and I think it's kind of strange when I think of it now, like just like the fact of dividing, like it's a boys' scout and it's like girlfriends and well, I don't know how many women you had in the gang, but I'm sure
There's
there's
many
a-
men. There's many men.
It's interesting actually. I think that's why maybe I didn't like it.
Yeah.
We were, last night we were exploring the masculine and the feminine. So maybe that was like the early sign of, well, I don't know. Fernando, there's like a brotherhood that you probably found with your gang, but did you feel that a disconnect? Were there women in your gang?
There were women around. Yeah, we
Yeah.
had access to a lot of women.
Yeah.
The girls, I should say.
You know, as you got older, what are some of the types of communities that you really started to find value in?
Well, for me, I said the first time was then in Bali, where we had similar values, and I explored a lot of new realms for me, I would say, for living in more peace with nature and with myself, and going to bed by 10 and waking up at 5 and 6, and kind of like the whole community is doing that, and it's like totally accepted and nice. And also around food and yeah, later then I moved into this digital nomad lifestyle and the kind of location independent movement, and had a community around that. Also organized a conference with those kind of people, and felt, yeah, very inspired by the same like-minded people. It's just really nice where you don't like clash all the time, but rather like, yes, I think and feel the same.
Yeah, I think my case maybe was with TED Talks. Really felt connected with this idea of sharing great ideas and like having people coming from very different angles, and like even if people are very diverse in their where they were coming and the type of ideas, like I really felt connected with this very simple idea of like people coming together and just sharing great stuff, great talks, great ideas that can help the world become a better place.
For me, I think at one point when I was 17, from 11, 17, the gang life hit a tipping point. And we had an all-out war with the police, who were mainly cowboys. And I had to escape Texas, so I was jumping trains and hitchhiking and just going away as fast as I could, because I was 17. I knew that at that age I would be prosecuted as an adult. So my father gave me money through my brother to get out of the state. And I ended up connecting with hippies that were living on the rim of the Grand Canyon, hippies that were in different communes around New Mexico and Arizona and Colorado. And that was a different sense of community for me. They taught me about, growing your own food and making your own jewelry and designing your own jeans with beads and, peace and love. And it was really an amazing shift for me. So that's when I kind of started moving more in a hippie direction. And it was a blessing. And so it was very inspirational. And the music and the drugs, of course.
That'll be another topic.
Yeah.
Is there any time where like a community failed you?
After 17, I had a kind of a crazy epiphany, kind of what I heard you had the other day. And it changed my life. And so I decided to go back to university and clean up my life. And I joined kind of the born-again fundamental Christian movement. The charismatic movement is what they call it, because everyone was speaking in tongues and dancing and things like that. And I gave 7 years. I made a vow of celibacy and not to cut my hair and drink and smoke and curse for 7 years with these people. And it was fantastic. There was a really great sense of community when I went to university together, and we all played football and intramural sports and did everything together, including pray and went out to evangelize at times. At one point, I felt like I had become some part of some kind of almost like a fascist movement. If you weren't a Christian, or if you hadn't accepted Jesus as your personal savior, you were going to hell. And I never really could reconcile myself with that. I didn't even believe in hell, to be honest with you. I thought it was a man-made construct. That community disappointed me when I started standing up for the Muslims that they said were all going to hell, or the Hindus that were going to hell. I was like, how can you say that? These people are on their knees 5 times a day, praying, and you're going to be the person to condemn them to hell? No. So I was disappointed. I left that group. And I was in Paris at the time, and I went to Amsterdam and broke all my vows in one night.
It's interesting, especially being on these boats in a Muslim country. They're very devout here. And,
Very devout.
Every day, the blankets are out, and the crew of the boats have been, very devoted. Let's talk about FreeFlow and ThreeFold.
I think FreeFlow and ThreeFold are two sides of the same coin. So it's perfect that one will lead into the other. Because they're two different names, it sometimes feels like two different brands, and it's not. And then our world is coming in kind of as the umbrella of it all.
Yeah, if not just to explain a bit on that, so Christoph and the team have been built an amazing technology, an open source technology that is allowing to have a decentralized internet. And so on this decentralized internet, you have a different way of approaching technology and infrastructure that is giving you the opportunity for every one of us to have a unique representation of ourselves in this space. So like instead of having like thousands of clones like we have today, like running after our digital identity all the time, like what's my identity on Facebook and my identity on Instagram and my identity on LinkedIn or you name it. And it's kind of crazy because even now when you share messages, like you end up like running after yourself. Like, did I receive this on Slack, or did I receive this on Discord, or on Telegram, or on Signal, on WhatsApp? And like, it's insane when you think about it. Like, I have people I have a double conversation with on several apps, and I'm still talking to the same person. So, without getting into any technical details, like the problem that is solving ThreeFold is actually to build the right tech stack, so that anyone can give birth to its digital self, can give birth to a unique representation of itself on the people's internet, on an internet that is being hosted by the people for the people, where everyone can have a box at its place or can have directly provide internet capacity, like being a host, like on Airbnb, or being a guest, like by hosting what you need to host, being your music, your content, your books, your art, like whatever, directly on the space that you own in that new internet. So thanks to that, it allows communities to build on top by connecting themselves within that space, and by those communities having a common set of values and a specific purpose. And I think that's the case of FreeFlow. And so FreeFlow is a movement for digital freedom, for us to learn how we can harvest collectively the value we create for the community. It's a very open community. Like what we're creating with FreeFlow is part of our world. So our world is the bigger picture of like all that is being created as part of this ecosystem, of experiences that you can start creating the moment that people set free, because it all comes like with different phases. The first phase is you build the infrastructure, and that's ThreeFold job, like to build that infrastructure, and us, the communities, we help for that. So we can bring our hardware on it, we can participate in many different ways, we can support it in many different ways, but that's the first thing, is like building the people's internet. And once you have that, this community, like the goal of FreeFlow is actually to gather people around this idea of radical inclusion, gift economy, leave no trace. I think we'll go more in details about that, but with a very strong set of value around how you can create freedom and how you can bring people to freedom in this digital space, where everyone can have its own identity, give birth to its FreeFlow self, to its FreeFlow I, right? Like who I am in that space, the moment that I'm ultimately and I'm infinitely me, when I'm connected to that person that I am on the internet. And then all the tools that you can use for this community to be able to coordinate and to share, to exchange value, to exchange culture, to exchange content, to gather. So like the moment that all those different elements become free and become available and open source, like anyone, like the limit for this is our imagination, is our creativity, because we can create so much based on those very simple tools, let's say.
You said digital copy of yourself, but could that also be framed as your twin, your like online twin?
The difference is that actually it's not like it's your twin. Like technically you can call it a twin, but it's really you. Like when you talk to me, you're actually talking to me, and it's always be me. Like it's really me there. It's me on top of the planet, like floating around, flowing around, going from one place to another. Like literally, it's like the moment we have a real digital self, we have this representation of ourselves there, that is not a copy in this case, because it's like it's really me. Like it's not a clone like you have with all those company, Facebook, etc., like Google. Like there, it's a clone. Like it's not you. And you have no control over your identity. In the case of FreeFlow, and like you really have your own identity. You control it. Like you are the only one having access to it.
Like the information, like the back-end information?
All the back-end information, all the data that you have are hosted by yourself. So you're not, it's a very, very different space. Like we're not even talking about Web3, we're talking about Web4 in this case. Because it's a peer-to-peer everything. So like you become part of a peer-to-peer nation, of a peer-to-peer community that interconnects all of us as if we were the myceliums, like as if we were like really like a nervous system for the planet. And by being connected directly one to another, we can create, we can collaborate, we can produce things that that can belong to us. So it opens a real culture of commons.
And it's something very new, like what we experienced like the last 10 years only with like social media and so on is like normal for us in the Western world. But it's actually not normal. And we are creating a new normal, and it might be not normal for the other people. But we want to create this for us because we don't want to be the product. And we just know that the big elephant in the room, so-called, just has us in their hands, and it causes a lot of trouble in our world, therefore. And it, our sovereignty is just really on the edge. And it's a big conversation that ThreeFold and also with FreeFlow is kind of like having with the world, because only 50% of our world is connected to the current internet, which is very fragile. And then the other 50% in the developing countries are not yet. And I just have been to Africa, and I just have been meeting with a guy who told me he got a smartphone 3 weeks ago from a hotel guest, and he has WhatsApp since 2 weeks. And I was like, wow. I haven't met a person ever that only has WhatsApp since 2 weeks, right? Like for me, this is like so-called normal to have your all kind of social media accounts, yeah. But again, it is not, depending on where you are. So what we are building is very user-centric, and you are, as Florian was talking about, you are your only identity and have all access to it. And it's a paradigm shift. So this is why it's like so challenging sometimes to articulate it or to conceptualize it, because we're really programmed in this other direction, and to have everywhere new logins. And I go to PayPal and I go to YouTube and I go there, and everywhere is a new login. Like everybody has 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 apps on his phone. That doesn't have to be like that. That's the thing. And it's not that we can change it immediately tomorrow. And we can change it in the long run. And that's what we are working on, again, as a community, as a movement, because we want this to happen. And we have the chance, thanks to ThreeFold and to the hard work of the deep tech people, yeah, that we are able to do this. And that's also why it becomes, in my case, really a responsibility, because as I can do it, I have to do it. Because like that, other people have an opportunity to choose. And some people won't choose it, which is okay, but other people will. And this is just like driving me and happy, making me happy, I would say.
So I can still have all my favorite apps. This FreeFlow would just act as kind of my wallet.
No. FreeFlow is a community, and then you've got different interface. And this interface allows you to interact actually with yourself. And this representation of yourself, like you could have at some point a voice assistant. It could be through an app on the television. The app thinking is linked to the current like world we live in, like where you've got like companies like Apple or Google who have the distribution process for the apps that allows you to connect and interconnect. With FreeFlow, the difference, like it's not gonna be like that you switch, that you have to not have any interface from the Web 2 still, but you will be able to actually have one interface that will be interfacing with all your friends, and you won't be needing anything else.
So I won't be needing Instagram or Facebook or WhatsApp. It'll all be based in this.
But the difference that you'll be able to have through FreeFlow, and like the community will be building its own version of Instagram with its own rules and its own colors and its own style and its own whatever. And because everyone is hosting its own content, you can literally scale a project like that to 1 million people without having hosting costs that are centralized, because everyone is hosting what it's in, like posting on the web. So like if I post a picture, I will post it in my space, directly in the space that I have as my home inside the people's internet. So like when you go there and you see the picture, you're actually seeing a picture that is in my home, and you're seeing it through an experience that is like Instagram. We take that as an example, but in the end, like what you will be seeing is like you will see a collection of lots of pictures being posted by different people, but each of them will be posting them from their own space. So it's a very different standpoint, because like it's not like it's a collective experience. It's not an app. An app will be applying something on yourself from a centralized entity. In this case, we're talking about an experience because it's a collective experience of sharing that is happening. It's like kind of a Burning Man of the internet, if you think so.
And I think that this is also important because it's so different. Like Instagram owns your data, and if you put the photo there, like people just don't realize, including myself a few years back, like where does the picture go? where is it, right? Like those are centralized servers, and this whole concept, anyways, is also kind of like breaking down because they cost a lot of money and they're are really, really hard to develop. Of course, as I kind of like mentioned just before, only the developing countries are really like building it. So what I think about it is that we are building something parallel. And the people who want to go on that parallel train are invited to co-create with us. People who are not understanding what the fuck are they doing, why is this even important, be on the other train, that's totally fine.
Yeah, or I don't care if you have my data.
Exactly, yeah, that's totally fine. You can maybe jump over to the train, you like it, you don't like it, that's also fine with us. But for us, because for us it is really important, because I want it for my children, and I have seen what has happened in the last just 20, 30 years with the internet. I mean, like it's not that long out there and how much it can impact the whole world. Okay, what can we create then in the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years? And this is the train that I'm on. And this is the train that we are kind of like, and we don't know exactly where it's going, but it's definitely going in that direction of like, I own my data. I'm not the product.
We're on a boat to nowhere,
in Egypt.
which nowhere is also now here. I first got involved with ThreeFold when I met the founder, Christoph and Isabel in Ibiza. And he explained to me the technology in a nutshell, and I understand the importance of ThreeFold, the technology side, but for me, I was more interested in FreeFlow. And the way he presented FreeFlow to me in the beginning was that FreeFlow was kind of the community base that was going to be the philanthropic side of ThreeFold community and the Internet of Internets, which is the new term we're using. And just had the best talks, and he basically said to me, listen, Fernando, I'm surrounded by geeks and coders and techies, and you're surrounded by artists and musicians in this Burning Man community. I think we need to cut the middleman out and let's hang out. You know, you bring the artists and the colorful people, and I'll bring the boats and the geeks, and geeks and artists unite. And that's kind of where we're at with the FreeFlow side, in my opinion. And we're doing FreeFlow events around the world to kind of introduce the ThreeFold technology and having a great time, you know, with Florian and Duncan and Karoline. And I mean, it's so amazing when Ellie Light brings the music on the boat, for example. Some of these beautiful middle-aged, sometimes, you know, late 20s geeks get on the dance floor and dance like 10-year-olds and just have the best time of their life. And that's where the bonding really happens for me, is on the dance floor when we all just express ourselves and become children again.
I think this part is so strong and so important. Like the fact of having a very strong like cultural shifting community of like-minded people being together and saying like, okay, how can we do something on the cultural side? So it's not only about tech. Like you've got the tech. The tech is important. Without the tech, you cannot move things. But like without people understanding within themselves, like what it means to become a peer-to-peer spaces, it needs to go through a process, because like we all look at the world, we've been used to see the world as a pyramid, like something where like everything is coming from top down, and it's all about power over, and it's all about, and so we get used to that. And the only way that you can touch and you can really connect with people's hearts is by really creating a culture, and by like inviting the artists, the rebels to paint and to sing and to bring music and to connect, because then like that's where you bring the divine. That's where you bring like the true heart within the project. That's where you can actually enable the people to gather and to understand collectively like what freedom means. And there is a beautiful ceremony that we're doing in those gatherings. The name of the ceremony is Altar. It's Ellie Light who envisioned lots of elements of it, and it's really amazing, because actually like it's about how you use really like sound and vibration and sound healing as part of the way of awakening your true self, and awakening and connecting with the person that is within yourself. And I think like the beautiful opportunity we have, because like we could just like drop like login to people to get their digital self, right? It's not about that. Like if we are about to recreate a new internet, a place where we can really be ourselves, where we can be free, where there is no middleman, there is no interest, no marketing, not all those unwanted emails and advertising and all that things that have been really commoditizing us. Like we need to really do that in a way that is true consciousness, like where we can gather and we can understand like what it means to have this little being that can interconnect with anyone in the world. It's so beautiful, like to think that I can talk with someone that is like in the other side of the planet. I can relate with him, I can send him value without any boundaries. Like it's insane. Like it's nuts. And I think like we just with the way this first phase of the internet was produced, it was extremely centralized in northern country. I live in Brazil. I can tell you that like internet is not equally available, not with the same and also like it's just like we didn't realize that, wow, maybe now we have a chance to unite. Maybe we have a chance to unite in freedom. Maybe we have a chance to recreate a new world and just to get it differently and like think about lots of the things and the preconceived that we had that actually were wrong, that we can just like start fresh. And so this connection with music, this connection with healing is super important in the process. And I invite everyone who has the opportunity to actually join one of our gatherings, and there will be many, where we want to go through that process, like for people to really like connect to themselves and also like understand consciously, like because the moment that you do that, you start removing the fear, you start connecting with love, you get yourself ready, let's say, for a new kind of experience and a new way to relate to others.
I've heard a lot of questions around trust and security. Like, can someone break into this and should I trust it?
But somebody can break into your Facebook account. Like, why is that not a question? Somebody can break into your insurance account. Like,
yeah, but if they can already do that with what they've got, what will help them trust this process?
Yeah, I think in this, technically speaking, like the big difference is that like you are the one hosting your data. Like you've got an internet of internet, you've got a system that is working with an overlay network. Where you can connect as if it was a peer-to-peer VPN in a way, and you can connect directly to your space where you've got all your files kept, and they are kept by a system we call the content safe file system. So like whatever you've got in yourself, in your FreeFlow home, in that space that you have that belongs to you, whatever you have there, you will be 100% safe. Now we use the system of having like a public key and private key. Like we've got a way to connect to yourself that is actually your responsibility. So you need to be careful with your login and name and that kind of things. But like it's because it's only you. Like you're the one in charge. So you need to protect yourself. But the moment that you connect to it, like it's 100% safe.
yeah, no comments. It's 100% safe.
Yeah, every time I brought up concerns, they tell me it's 100% safe. So I'm trusting. And
Can
I've
anything?
asked,
Yeah, is that possible? Can anything be 100% safe?
these guys seem to be confident of it. Christophe, when I ask him, he says, because, and then he goes into tech language and he loses me, but he explains why, and it seems like they have a pretty surefire system, but I don't know if anything can be 100, maybe 99% safe.
If you listen to the last episode, that'll clarify this.
Okay.
I hear a lot about like the metaverse is coming. How does this fit into that projected future?
We have the perfect capabilities to run a metaverse. Actually, because you're closer to the GPU, you can have a very high level of renders. But what we believe actually in terms of this idea of metaverse is that people don't want to live in a video game. What's very sad that right now most of those metaverse, like they kind of look like video game, and they are creating artificial realities instead of creating the extension of our world, of the world we live in that is already beautiful. And I think that's very sad. I think it's very, very sad, and creating a shortcut for people to get through, like receiving dopamine and receiving like, yeah. I think we are being like purchased by algorithmic drug dealers that are like just like giving us like this algorithm to impact people's face. And I think like the metaverse, the way it's being put together right now is really, really bad. And like, I think the way we look at it more is creating something that is as above, so below. Like where you really interconnect directly with yourself. And like, if there is a metaverse, it has to be like the extension of our own world.
And not a game.
And not a game and not a different one. Like our world is perfect. We just need to take care of it.
Our world is perfect. Our planet, at least, I should say.
Who are the people resisting this?
I think everybody's kind of attracted to it in the beginning, especially when we introduced it as FreeFlow. They love the name, and that seems to flow for everybody. One of the things I'm learning working with people that are technologically inclined is that sometimes the communication suffers because they're very introverted, a lot of them, so it's hard to know what some of these brothers are thinking. And so I think sometimes the communication can cause people to feel insecure and maybe fall to the wayside, and then they would become a little adversarial. Very minor percentage, like 0.0, 0.1. But that's been the only resistance I've seen.
Because we have not figured out everything yet. There is, of course, a lot of question mark or resistance just for people coming like with all their questions, and we're maybe not completely ready yet to answer them, and we're really inviting everybody to figure it out with us. Again, as I mentioned, I feel that we are on a train to a better world. Like that's kind of like where we're going, but I don't know how long it's gonna take. I don't know how far it is. And I'm still very, very grateful that I'm on this, that we are building community, that we're getting more people on the train, and then we are figuring it out together. But of course, people are like standing next to it, being resistant, don't know what this is, like, okay. And again, because we're also so programmed and so used to this, because what is nice about all the big companies is that the UX UI is very, very nice. And like their communication is very, very good. Mm-hmm. So there are many short-term dopamine or kind of like incentives there why the resistance wouldn't be there in the first place. Because it looks nice, it is nice, no. And with us, we're still kind of in the baby shoes and are not even always like completely able to articulate it all and color it out. But that also makes the beauty out, because I just don't remember how it was 20, 30, 40 years ago when they built the internet. And I mean, like, that was also not so inclusive, and there was also so much resistance there. I mean, there are enough examples from Microsoft to Steve Jobs and so-called where everybody felt like, okay, they are crazy. And now the Western world has a smartphone, at least one in his pocket all the time. So it's just a really big shift that we are living in. And I could name people, of course, that they are resistant, and that's okay. That's okay. But I focus on the positive, and that shall expand and make the train faster going.
I think the need for human resources, like a human resources department, is happening organically. And people are stepping up and providing tools to kind of communicate, navigate through our communications, which is great. I'm happy to be a part of that as well.
We talked a little bit about Instagram, and right now there's a tension with artists posting and just not really having any ownership over it, which is kind of where I guess NFTs are coming in. How does an artist participate? What would be a bonus in an artist switching from older platforms to something like this?
Yes, I think on that part, it's actually where we start. Like it all starts with art and culture and how can people share it. And I think it's where we started our first iteration about like how people will be able to experience FreeFlow and its interface. Like you will have all your capabilities, like simple capabilities like chat, wallet, Zoom, like that kind of things that will already be, we already built them. But the real first experience that we feel that will be amazing is about how the artists can share directly, peer-to-peer, their music without any intermediary, without the middleman. Like just like by having you as an artist being able to post your content, like your music, your books, like whatever, directly on the shelves of your home, as if it was your real home. Like you can think of it as your home, really. And this music then can be accessed directly by the people that you are opening your home to. or they can be shared into like experiences where you will be able to find them. But by listening to this music or by sharing this, you will have a very little button with a flower, and you will be able to click on it and directly give gratitude rewards to these artists. So like it allows you to actually value art and culture directly without any middleman. Think about MySpace version 2022 without MySpace.
Yeah, and we are still in the building phase, right? Like
Yeah.
it is also, as we are sharing here on the podcast, it's an invitation to grow our community, to grow this FreeFlow. And we are not only in the think tank anymore, but we are also still kind of like just in the lab in itself with everybody on the boat. And there is not the ability yet to switch tomorrow and like give everything else up and be rewarded. And like we're in this new, again, we are building it together. Yeah, this invitation of like look back to what you were using 10 years ago, technological wise, with like MySpace, or I don't know, the first MP3 player from Apple, right? And now we have iPhone 13. Like it's just like in what, like 10, 15 years, what can happen? And this is, we're at the start. We're just making the first step, and we invite you in if you want to come with us on this train and want to co-create. And we don't have all the solutions, but we definitely have some major possibilities, and that's the invitation for FreeFlow.
Now that I've been invited, what are my first steps on becoming active?
Join the community, join our Discord, be active. If you're an artist, you want to participate in the co-creation and understanding like what you can do in the experiences that we'll be building based on music or art. Be part of the think tank, be part of the thinking behind. Like all we do is an invitation, like for now. Like it's an invitation to co-create this new interface for the people.
We're on the train that's being developed now, and the Discord chat that you just mentioned is the start of the community that's going to build what it will happen after ThreeFold is launched.
An important disclaimer here is that like we're using Discord just as a temporary tool because we're already building on our own that are obviously open source,
Peer-to-peer.
and that will be 100% hosted on the grid.
And ThreeFold itself is live. That also is an important one.
And our events, we're having events. We went to South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. We were at the Bitcoin conference in Miami. We had some representatives in Amsterdam at the crypto conference of some sort.
You've mentioned radically inclusive a couple of times. What relationship is this future, and how does it relate to the Burning Man principles?
I think the Burning Man principles are at the foundation of what we're doing, because Burning Man has influenced us and inspired us in so many new and different ways. But they're good 10 basic principles that are parameters that most of us can work within. And they've proven to work on the playa, which I feel like Burning Man is an experimental society. It's experimentation in civilization and communications and creativity, and it's a culture building machine in a lot of ways. So yeah, we adhere closely to them. I've been to the playa 22 times, and it's home for me, you know. And it feels like there's a natural transition from Burning Man to this community as well. A lot of our fellow burners are interested in what we're up to, and you know, we'd eventually like to see how we can collaborate with Burning Man, maybe through the tokenizations of tickets and NFTs or whatever. But Burning Man is home, and home for us is heaven on Mother Earth. So we're kind of bringing in a lot of different concepts and putting them in the pot and creating a special dish of beauty and love and communication and a higher level of understanding for all of us, you know, and how we can polarize away from where the world is to where we envision the world to become, you know, as above, so below, as below, so above, as we mentioned before, which is, we can go into it sometime, but that's also old Egyptian Hermetic 7 principles of truth from Thoth and the Kybalion and how to create your own reality.
Yeah, we're in Egypt, and you know, we're talking a lot about different gatherings, like live gatherings. This isn't quite created yet, and so it's kind of in its beta test community building phase. There's all these temples and ceremonies that ancient cultures and wisdom have had that we're really exploring this week while we're in Egypt. How important are these gatherings when we transition? How is that interpreted, and what's the importance of it?
For me personally, and I feel for the people that I'm close to on the boat, I think that we're impacted 100% by the spirits of the land and the history of Egypt and the energy of Isis, for instance, or the energy of Hathor or Horus, when you go into the background of who they actually were and what they represented and what qualities they had. Somehow we're getting back to the basics, and for me, the natural transition is to go from Egypt to Greece, because we're moving from the mother of civilization to the cradle of Western civilization in Greece, and it seems to be a very synchronistic transition as we'll move to the rest of the world, including Rome and all the other empires that have fallen. But being in Egypt is very impactful. If you haven't been here, I suggest it's a must-see. Especially I'm not so interested in the pyramids in Cairo, but I'm very impacted by the temples and the Nile itself.
Yeah, me too. I was invited in 2020 to come to the Nile, and within 36 hours I made my way here. Adventurous as I am as well.
On this trip or your first one?
My first trip, yeah. I got invited to the boats as well by Christoph. Basically, that was a common friend. He wanted to do a project and needed a project manager, and were asking me to come over. And I did, and it blew me away. I was jaw-dropping. It's so touching, and it's so... I became very humble, like just seeing this like temples and all the hieroglyphs and the energy around it. And yeah, it's a very powerful place, and merging that, again, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, merging that with the technology that we are having and wanting to create our future, and like looking back to our ancestors and like what have they been creating, and we cannot even explain it. What can we create, and apparently also not completely explain it yet. And like just like in this like merge and being present and being open to it, to the possibility, and being just really like, okay, committed to doing something, like to do the best that we can.
Is it possible for gatherings in this new digital world to be as impactful as gatherings in the real world?
It's a challenge, because I'm very fortunate, and we are very fortunate we are able to travel, and that I was also last year able to travel and so forth. And some people, maybe even like, maybe not necessarily like the Hatch community, but like some people who are listening to the podcast haven't been traveling for 2-3 years now. Like, it's just a fact, depending on how the economy looks for them on a personal level. Like, there was so much impact due to COVID, right? So if you can do it and travel, then of course, please do so, because it's not comparable. And I feel that we can still create the best out of it, because what I mentioned also, when COVID hit and we were able to go online and connect with the people, I was at least not sitting alone at home. And there was a First World War and there was a Second World War, and people were just like isolated in their place for months, and you don't have any connection to anybody. You don't even know what's going on with your family. At least you can connect with your friends and your community, and I feel that this is a huge privilege. And therefore, going into some kind of online courses or like even online retreats, might be not as impactful than having them in person. And it still is a beautiful chance that we are having in our time to at least have that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think those gatherings are essentials. It's like, but it can be also very local. Like the idea of like right now we are a small community still. So like we figure out a place to meet in the world and we go together. And but in the end, the idea is that community growing, you will have local places to go and to gather without having to travel, to take a plane and to go far away. And the question, I think, the big question is like, how do you create something that is truly social, where you can really connect not only in the digital world, but in the physical world. That's really something we're really going down the rabbit hole in terms of design and thinking, and like how you can really become a true enabler for any community, group of people willing to produce a gathering, to be able to go and through the FreeFlow interface, interconnect with other like-minded people and like produce those gatherings by just like bringing their whatever they have to bring to the table together and like making it decentralized and autonomous and something that can be reproduced and that can be scaled because actually it's decentralized and it has to be like that. And I think it's one of the key elements of how you build community and how you can really create these connections between people.
I think the technology is evolving. If you look at Burning Man, for example, when they canceled it that one year and they tried to do kind of a Burning Man metaverse and it didn't go over very well, you didn't really feel like you were inside of it. Then the next year they had Renegade Burning Man and people went out there and created the illusion of, say, the man with drones and that felt like you were being pulled in even more. And I see that the technology is getting us closer to the physical experience, but in the end, the physical experience is incomparable, really, I find. It's like you have to be there if you can, you know. Of course, those that can't travel or they're incapacitated, the virtual is the only option. But if there's a way to also be in the same space with like-minded people, there's a potential spontaneous combustion that can happen in that situation, you know.
Yeah, what happens when we're connecting digital space is great, but it's an illusion of the reality. It's not the reality. Like you cannot bring the energy and of the people and like we are all made of, like we have a heart. We are made of electromagnetic fields. So I can feel that you're here. Like I can feel that we're the four of us in the same space. I wouldn't be able to feel that if I was just having a podcast on the internet. Like it's very different. Like you cannot see it, but you can feel it. It's so different.
And quite a beautiful setup you did, by the way.
Thank you.
Very nice. I'd like to say that I have a very similar inspiration with FreeFlow and ThreeFold and Our World and Christoph and all our team members that I had when I first started out with Burning Man. You know, it felt like a growing community. It was experimental. The visionary was Larry Harvey at the time was very. I mean, he just made sense, you know, and it gave me a feeling of doing something important for the world, even though in that case it was more for a bunch of us crazy anarchists that were going out to the desert. I feel like I'm doing something important for the world with FreeFlow and ThreeFold, and that keeps me inspired and keeps me plugged in, you know, and even though it's been hard at times, I don't want to lose this train. I want to stay on it any way I can. And I encourage people like Duncan, please, we need you. You know, Karoline, you're with us for life. Florian, gracias. So we're figuring it out, but it feels like we're doing something to help make the world a better place.
Yeah, to add on this, agree with all what Fernando is saying, and also for me, like being 30 this year, like there's so much in front of me and our generation and my future children that I want to be a part of the solution. And as I said, I'm very grateful and I'm very privileged to be in this position, and this is why exactly I want to gather more people and I want to figure out more how we're like going with the train and the direction that we want. Because until now, I felt that I just didn't have an option, and this whole internet and apps and so-called, like you just go with it. But if you dig a little bit deeper, and if you listen maybe to the podcast before this one, like you really understand it's very fragile and it's very, very controlled. And there are many aspects of it which are really not nice. And again, with ThreeFold and FreeFlow and Our World, and just us as humans coming together with the heart and making a conscious decision to reach to each other, we really can make a difference. And that's what excites me so much. So everybody come on the train with us. And
welcome aboard.
Yes, and we figure it out together along the way, and it's going to be fun, and sometimes it's going to be hard. And it's a beautiful life that we are co-creating here.
Yeah, I would just close on an open invitation. Like I think like everyone has the opportunity to bring his any form of creativity, ideas, like any form of wealth in a very wide sense to this vision and this project. I think freedom is really closing. Like it's closing everywhere and in every possible perspective. And it's extremely, extremely sad and it's extremely worrying. And I heard you said that a bit earlier, but like so many people doesn't care about giving their data. For me, it's insane because like it's just like I remember reading when I was a kid the book 1984, and I was like, well, but I just don't understand. Like, how did they went from like situation A to situation B? Like, how can people don't realize that? And it's exactly what we're living. Like people say like, oh, I have nothing to hide. It's where it starts. I have nothing to hide. So that at that moment, people just give up on their freedom. They're just like, no, I have nothing to hide. It's okay to manipulate me. It's okay to lie. It's okay to. That's such a hard moral degradation, and it's so crazy actually that we're living that, and that people are just looking at it and saying it's okay. And it's not okay, and that's why we need to be freedom warriors. That's why we need to really rebel against that. That's why we need to be super, super strong, and not against in terms of like in a violent way. On the contrary, just connecting to our heart, giving people the trust that we are one, and if you're part of a network, and if I have water in my garden, you will never miss water. And if people can really understand that, it will remove the fear. Like it's not that the world is like the world is very abundant. Like there is enough for everyone. So the only thing is that like we've been only like been manipulated through a culture of fear, and it's extremely sad. And that's the only way that they actually control the people, telling them like, hey, be careful, you need to do this, otherwise you may be without water, without money, without whatever. And like people start to freak out, and then they accept whatever kind of freedom blockers. And I think it's like if we have a chance to make that 1984 situation not happen, it's our duty for all of us to just be part of that. Anyhow, it can be singing songs, it can be writing poems, it can be organizing healing session, it can be facilitating new ideas to emerge in that new space through an event. It can be in any form, but you have no choice but to really join something like that, because like we cannot let that go and just like say like, okay, I'll come back next day. Like I'll come back another time. I think it's kind of crazy. I remember the time I worked at Apple for 8+ years, and the time that I decided to leave because I felt that I had found I started an education project named Sikana. Actually, people at Hatch knew, they know, where we produced 2,300 videos, that in many languages, and that experience we're bringing on top of our world. Now we bring on top of you will be able to access it through your FreeFlow digital self. Like all this is happening now. But the moment I decided, I felt like, wow, maybe like through education and through like using education as a currency, we've got a way to change the world positively. I felt like, okay, like I need to do that. I need to leave my job and do this. The first thing that happened where people at the top of the company, like the number 2 of marketing of the company, called me and said like, hey, you're crazy, Florian, to think you can change the world. Like you're crazy to leave the company. You're going to destroy your life financially, like trying to make me vibrate in the fear while I was vibrating in the love and in the trust and in willing to change things for the better. And I felt that we had found a way. And it doesn't matter actually if it's right or if it's wrong. It doesn't matter if we're gonna do it or not. When you go to play on the field, you don't think about like if you're gonna win. You go there and you play. And I think it's exactly what is missing so much in the world. Like people are so mind-driven, masculine-driven, and not enough driven by the heart, by the trust in like the fact that things can be abundant and that there is a way of doing things and like following really their heart and intuition. We live in chaos because of that. Because like we're just like connecting through the idea of like, oh, it's not logical to do that. Oh, if I do this, maybe I won't have enough next month I won't have enough money on my bank account. When you feel doing something, just do it. Just do it, because if you feel it, it will manifest and it will become right, and it will be part of actually what you're producing for a more desirable future. So I think that would be my that message that I want to leave to the people who are listening here, and to all the hatchers who are listening here. Like, guys, like, I think we are like
Girls.
and girls. Sorry, to the hatchers, whatever gender. No, to all the hatchers, if you're listening to this, like, just let's build our world. Let's hatch a better world. Hatch our world together and like find the different things and projects and how we can accelerate things at every possible level so we can keep freedom vibrant.
Aho.
Aho.
Aho. I'm Tate Chamberlin. This is the Hatch Podcast series. Florian, Karoline, Fernando, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There are hurdles, those that are expected and the assured surprises. That is the nature of change. And the roadblocks to evolutionary growth are there to challenge commitment, perspective, and vision. And the visionaries, well, they have their own ammunition. In the case of the freedom fighters at the forefront of FreeFlow, that ammunition is as groundbreaking in a world driven by fear, scarcity mindset, and greed as it is simple. Trust. They cultivate autonomy and sovereignty of self and notion through radical inclusion. They lead with love. They extend open invitations to everyone. They deny fear tactics. They manifest abundance. They create community. They gather to share, laugh, and dance. They are building the train they wish to ride into the future they wish to know, on a planet that is perfectly defined by all the same, just as it is. And it's waiting, patiently, for us to realize our potential and redefine our allegiance once and for all. These last two episodes were so special, and they couldn't have happened without Yara Krainer, Florian Fournier, Christophe de Spiglier, and the entire crew at ThreeFold, FreeFlow, and Hatch. Thank you for hosting me. This episode was produced by Yara Krainer, Susan Karstensen, and me, Tate Chamberlin. A shout out to our media and production team, Jessica Byerly, Allison Gregory, Kevin Hilton, Roy Chapman, Eli Kisko, Raymond Onsatagi, Sean Mackinson, Robert Edwards, and Mark Groner. A special thanks to Yara Krainer, Jared Silverman, Pete Strom, Josie Caton, Eitan Shapira, Cassidy Seckman, Bryant Stersala, Rachel Hicks, Katie Yam, and Lou Morris. With so much gratitude to the Hatch supporters, Steelcase, the Kauffman Foundation, the Gwydion Fund, Envision Equality, the Hatch volunteers, board of directors, Hatch guardians, and the community who help make this work and mission possible. To learn more about Hatch, visit hatchexperience.org. Building community could not happen without food. And with that, I'd like to thank Whistle Pig Korean, Red Tractor Pizza, and Zocalo Coffee House. Do you have an issue that's riddled by gridlock in your community? Shoot me an email at tate@iaminterchange.org. That's tate@iaminterchange.org. Remember, share airtime and don't ruin dinner.